What are you? A rocket scientist? Well, yes, I am a rocket scientist. And if you think being a rocket scientist makes you immune to death, disease, and suffering, then I have a plot of land to sell you. You see, the irony of that joke is that there is no land to sell, not even to fools. You see, rocket scientists need a way of disarming people, and for me, my weapon of choice was my attempt at humor. My name is Bruce S. Levison of Toledo, Ohio, and I died in the hospital on Tuesday, April 7th, 2020 at the age of 60 from COVID while I was being treated for lung cancer. As a sidebar, I've never smoked a day in my life, and when I was younger I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. I guess COVID didn't like either of those diseases. I left behind so many people that loved me. My wife, my kids, 2 brothers and their spouses, grandchildren, numerous nephews and nieces, friends, and colleagues. The worst thing about my death is that my elderly parents couldn't even have a funeral for me. They couldn't even say goodbye to me in person, and their sense of grief is immeasurable. The passing of time usually helps one cope with grief, but COVID-19 is thriving without a let-up in sight. So how can anyone cope when anyone they know can become infected and possibly die from it? It's unconsolable because it didn't have to be this way. COVID-19 has brought a tsunami of death to the United States of America, and I was one of those people caught early in its wake. My work as a research scientist was in, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it, was in gut microbiota. Yeah, you've all heard of that. And how it influences disease states and affects pediatric dosing. My scholarly work included 542 highly influential citations, 9,344 citations, and 47 research papers. Although I received many grants and around 18 awards and commendations, I'm most proud of receiving the Innovator Award twice from the Cleveland Clinic in 2008 and 2012. So, why am I considered a rocket scientist? I'm glad you asked. I'm happy to tell you. First, I want you to know, and don't be surprised, but there's really no such thing as a rocket scientist, per se. You can become a rocket engineer or a scientist, but since everyone called me a rocket scientist, I'll go ahead and use this phrase generically. Now, I wasn't a typical rocket scientist with a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, but I was a rocket scientist at heart, publishing copious amounts of articles about this field. I was a member of the National Association of Rocketry and enjoyed simulating flights, designing new models, and utilizing 3D printing to build rockets with the correct bespoke parts. But where did all this come from? Where did it begin for me? Well, I just studied. I really studied. I was the student people offered money to take the test for them. But no, I would never do such a thing like that. Not that it was just too immoral for me, I just didn't have the time. I graduated in 1981 from the University of Toledo with a BS in pre-med with a tri-major in math, biology, and chemistry. I continued my studies at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, where in 1986 I received my PhD in organic chemistry, and in 1988 I earned a postdoctoral degree in pharmacology. Yep, I was a born rocket scientist. Pretty much just like my dad. And speaking of my dad, he took me on my first airplane ride when I was just a little kid. And I was so excited to fly in an airplane because as a budding rocket scientist, the ability to fly and almost touch the sky was everything to me. Before I became seriously ill, I took my last airline flight. Although at the time I didn't know it was going to be my last flight. I boarded the plane, sat down, and the man sitting next to me asked if we could talk, and I agreed. I asked what he wanted to talk about, and he said, rocket science. I was secretly thrilled, and I could barely contain my excitement. So, my response to him was, that's great, but can I ask you something real quick? Why do rabbits leave such small pellets when they poop, horses leave much larger pellets, and cows leave enormous sized patties on the ground? And he just gave me the strangest look. And he responded, I don't know. So I say to him, then how do you expect to hold a conversation about rocket science when you don't know shit? Bruce, out.